All right, let us take a look at what's going on for week 2. First thing to do is go to modules. That's where we are right now. And remember that you can collapse the previous week's modules by clicking on the little triangle here. I'll do that for week 1, so we get a full view of week 2. As always, there are many things to take care of this week. The first thing is the overview, objectives, and to-do list. On that page, you get an overview of what we're doing, a list of all the stuff we'll be learning. It's a lot. And the list of assignments. There are some other pages, but these are the assignments that are due during the week. So there's a discussion. We'll look at that in a moment. There are 3 chapters, chapters 4, 5, and 6. There are pages for each of those. I'll show those as well. There is homework 2, there's a quiz, and the first project. All those things are due this week. And if that's not enough, there's a couple of extra pages, extra tutorials you can take a look at. Let's work through all of those. So first off, the week 2 discussion. It's about selections. Do take some time to do a little bit of research and talk about in your discussion about what are good methods of making selections. And there's lots of different tools you can use, lots of different techniques you can use. So contribute to that discussion. Don't forget to reply to this week just one of your classmates by the end of the week to discuss the different methods of selection. Next up, I'll take a look at the chapter 4 page. This is the page that has the information about Chapter 4. There is one for Chapter 5 and Chapter 6 as well, but I'll just quickly remind you about what each page looks like. They all look essentially the same. There is a link to the page on how to use the textbook. Hopefully you're comfortable with that by now, but if not, go ahead and look at that page. It's the same page as last week. There are, as always, some notes for the chapter, and it is important, as described here, to download those notes. You can't just click it to open it. You got to download it and open it in Adobe Reader. If you're on a Mac, be sure that it opens in Adobe Reader and not Preview, so that you can actually see the notes that go along with the PDF. So these are the hands-on exercises in the chapter that I go through, and I give you notes on how explaining what to do, extra tips, and so on. So it's basically all the hands-on exercises in the chapter plus some extra notes for me. In order to do the hands-on exercise, you need the data files. Here's the data files here. You got to download and unzip that in order to get those data files, and that is chapter 4. And again, as I said, there's one for chapter 5 and one for chapter 6. Also due this week is homework 2, and that is going to cover, not surprisingly, the same 3 chapters, chapters 4, 5, and 6. And as in each week, the homework for the chapter will be the skills review at the end of the chapter. So when you're doing that homework, be sure to look at several things. Be sure to look at the PDF solution files. There's a PDF of the actual file, and then when the file has layers, there's a PDF of the layers as well, so you get a feeling for what you're trying to work on. Also, and maybe this is the most important thing on this page, there are notes to go along with the skills review exercise. So the exercise asks you to do a bunch of things. Some of the things are self-explanatory, some of the things need a little bit more explanation, and that's what these notes are. There's one for each of the exercises, one for skills review chapter 4, one for chapter 5, and one for chapter 6. So when you're doing the homework, you really need to come here to take a look at those notes. It'll tell you how to do it, what to skip, give you some extra hints and so on, and it will be very difficult to do the homework properly. In fact, I'd say impossible to do the homework properly without going through these notes. So you need to have this in hand as well. And again, some submission instructions down here. Put everything in a folder and zip it and then upload it. And do note down here, I'll just click open real quick the rubric. There's a rubric here to make sure that you know what to cover. Submit the files, complete the exercises, and have the right formats. Also due this week, this is new, Project 1. So here's Project 1. You will be creating a postcard. So unlike the skills review where you're asked to make some specific image, trying to work towards an image, this is open-ended. You can make really whatever postcard you want. Just to be clear, you're just making the front side of the postcard. You don't have to make the back side that has the little lines for the address and so on. Just the front side, the image on the postcard. And it can really be whatever you want. There are some guidelines down here, and I do suggest that you go and look at some postcards, get some ideas if you don't have an idea in your head already. Information about how to find images. And the most important thing about all these projects is that the goal of the project is to show off your Photoshop skills. So it's not the goal to make a great image, although that's nice too, but I'd rather you make just a so-so image, but do a great job of showing off those skills that we have learned so far. If you wonder what we've learned so far, here's a partial list of the tasks that we've done from between chapters 2 and 6. You can go take a look at that page. It's a lot. This page lists all the things that we've done in chapters 2, not so much in chapter 1, but chapters 2 through 6. And it's a lot. We've done a lot. And again, you don't have to do all these in your project. It would be shocking if you did. I wouldn't even try. But there's a ton of things that we will have learned by the end of week 3. The end of week 2, and those are things that you can use on your project. Also on the project, let me point out a couple of other things. There's an example, a sample submission here, so you can download this example and take a look at it. It gives you sort of a structure for how you can submit. You're not trying to make that image, but you do want to do some of the things that are done inside that image. And in particular, don't forget that the project has 2 parts. Besides just creating the image, I'm also asking you to describe what you did and how you did it. In particular, because when you work in Photoshop, sometimes it's hard for me to see what you did, and so that description can tell me the things you did. You don't have to list every single thing. So for example, open to file is not, doesn't show that much Photoshop skill. But if you made a difficult selection or did some kind of Photoshop trick or use some kind of tool that is not obvious or might not be obvious from looking at the image, be sure to list it so you get credit for having done that thing. So what to submit is listed here. Your image, your original images, if you've got multiple images that go into making up your final image. Your completed postcard should be a PSD file with all the layers, no extra layers. You'll get dinged for having extra layers, so get rid of the unneeded layers, but keep only the useful layers. And as suggested, a brief description of how you did it, and all those things are described in the sample. There is also a rubric here for the project, and I do suggest that you take a look at that to see what things are being asked as well. So do pay attention to the rubrics. That's what I'll be using to grade your project. There is one more quiz this week, quiz 2 on Photoshop's chapters 4 through 6. It's very much like the previous week's quiz, true, false, multiple choice, 2 attempts, time limit, the same things apply, open book. So good luck with the quiz. Remember, the quiz is not a huge amount of points in the class. Each quiz is only 40 points, so don't sweat it, but do your best. And it's coming mostly from the concepts, although there are some use of Photoshop questions, as you saw in the previous quiz. And finally, after you've done all that, there is a page here called a little extra. The little extra page just suggests some other things that you might want to do. This is optional. It's not for credit, but if you want to go deeper in your Photoshop knowledge, then this stuff will help. More information about layers and selections. So I know there's a lot going on this week, but if you have time, that will improve your work with Photoshop. That's it for this week. Go ahead and get started, and be sure to put a question in the Q&A or send me a message in the inbox if you are having trouble. Thanks.